Well, hello there.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Tanks and Thinks. I'm Edison.
That's Edison, and I am Chris,
And I'm Kyle.
and this is the podcast of the YouTube channel Science of Tanks, where we talk about bridging the gap between hobbyists and scientists. We go into a whole bunch of questions and talk about what's going on in our lives and talks about what's going on in the world of aquariums. Roll the intro.
And we're back.
Well, hello there, everybody. How's everybody's week been? I know we kind of talked a little bit about it before we went live, but what have we done this week?
I took a few tests. I have another one coming up on Tuesday, but studying. I did get
Fun.
some new fish though, some new rainbow fish. They're from the
Nice.
Grimes River. So I got like 4 of them because that's all they had at the local fish store. But I call them the Grimes Gang.
Nice.
Noise.
No pictures? Pictures or it didn't happen?
I was
They're
about
in
to say,
the
yeah, I
big
don't believe
tank
you,
back
sir.
there. that
That was
that
okay.
that.
There you go. Done. Well enough.
They're kind of cool because they have like the kind of rainbow stripe, right? But then they also have like this bright neon orange stripe on them.
That's cool. Rainbows are gorgeous, especially when
Oh
they
yeah.
fully mature and the colors all come in. I had a young one for a long time and it like never colored up. But could have been me not doing something right.
Could have been a female too, or a male without like another male to like have competition.
I think I did just no, because don't you want to get them in pairs? I think I got a pair of them or something.
No, you want to get them in a shoal.
Oh well, shows what I
Yeah,
know.
but I don't know. They've never been a fish that I've ever looked at, and I've been like, yeah, I desperately need that in my tank. I mean, I get why, right? They're super beautiful. They have this kind of big-bodied, deep-bodied type of body plan, and it's they have very good personalities and pretty nice characteristics. But I feel like in the grand scheme of things, if I wanted a shoaling fish, I'd definitely go tetra, or I'd go like barb or something like that. Something a little bit more
Well,
pop.
they can. It depends on which kind of rainbow fish you get. There's like the dwarf neons. They can pop and they're kind of smaller, and you can keep them in like a 20, 30 gallon without problems.
It's true.
Sure.
So I guess it depends on your taste, and that's the cool thing about aquariums.
Wait, so what you're saying is that we can't tell everybody that they're wrong for liking a fish?
Precisely.
We can totally do it.
We can trash on opinions, but at the
We
end of
look
the day,
like
they're
fools,
opinions.
yes, but the world's our oyster.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Kyle, what you been up to this week?
We were talking about it a little earlier, but finishing up in Nebraska, going home on Sunday, and a little worried about what I'm going to walk into with a 2-gallon nano and a 30-gallon water box. Maintenance and fish, and mother-in-law's been feeding them and topping them off with just tap water. So a month later, we'll see what we get, man.
I hope
But
it was
I don't know.
dechlorinated tap
What?
water. Hope it was dechlorinated tap water,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
else you're gonna come home
She's
to.
seen me do it long enough for as many years as I've been doing it. So she's fine. She's
She
good on
knows
that
better.
part, but it's even dechlorinated. You're just constantly dumping minerals into the tank. Um, it is what it is, man. So I mean, the way I run my tanks though is
You're
they're so
gonna
high
need to
energy
take a
that
video of it when you come back. You're gonna need to
oh,
take
I
a
will.
video of it and
I
send it to
will.
me. Yeah.
I will. You will see the
Yeah.
nastiness of probably what it is. I'm
Give us
probably
a
got
reaction shot.
grown out the top. We'll see, man. I'm hoping all the Neos did okay. She hasn't said anything. Usually she'll tell me like, "This one's making noise. What do I do?" Or whatever. The canister's doing something weird.
Yeah.
We'll see what I get back to. But I'll definitely take a, a reaction video of my tanks getting back home, man. Because but anyway, I was saying I run them so high energy and like CO2 driven that like even if there is a problem, I can pull a lot off, trim it all down, and it's like off on it in a couple weeks, like back on its way. A couple water changes. So that's the plus side of it. But it'll just be good to be
It's
back
true.
home messing with my tanks, for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Well, this week I haven't really done much, to be fully honest. Like we've been chilling at our house. I don't want to say I haven't done much, but it's just been mostly like busy work, right? You know how like days come up and you find yourself just randomly busy all the time.
Yep. And no stories.
What I
Just go
did.
for it.
Yeah, and I guess it's also my own fault because I've started to get in contact with PETA over my previous job, and they've started asking like a whole bunch of questions. I must have spent 7 hours on the phone with them over the last week. So like, it's like I did it to myself because I didn't need to like report my old job, but I kind of needed to because of the
Moral
animals.
compass
So,
stuff.
but anyway, so that's all my week's been, kind of dominated by.
Well, at least something's happening because
That's
fish
true.
we're all about the fish, and we like to make sure that they're having good ecosystems to live in instead of just a bowl.
Funny you say that. But no, I mean, my job search has been fine. I actually interviewed with the interview with the Idaho Falls Zoo went really well, surprisingly well. I'm trying not to psych myself up because you know how sometimes you're like, man, I did so good, and then they call you back and they're like, you were.
Yeah.
And so like I'm trying not to psych myself up, but the guy is super nice and it's a really good position to work if you're into conservation in any way, shape, or form, or giving back to the planet and animals. It's an awesome place to work.
So my first question, I guess my only question is this an AZA rated zoo?
That was
good.
that was the biggest selling point of me was I left my previous job because it was not AZA certified.
Well,
so
for good reason.
He was proud. He was like, you have good morals if you're willing just to give up your old job for that. And I said, well, there's other reasons. But I mean, it's the root of all causes is that reason. So, but no, my previous boss apparently way back when the Idaho Falls Zoo was open and the aquarium wasn't, he was going to be like, hey, can we do an aquarium for you at the zoo? Which would have been awesome, right? But two things came up. First, my previous boss didn't want to have to deal with AZA compliance because he didn't want to be held accountable for it. And then two, it would have taken like 10 years worth of funding in order to get the aquarium running because, city of Idaho or city zoos are intense when it comes to funding because they give almost as much out to conservation efforts as they actually have taking in. So when push comes to shove, that's why the aquarium I used to work at decided to be dumb. So
to put it in a word.
Yeah. Hopefully it pans out. I mean, if that's what the direction you want to head, sounds like a sweet gig to some extent.
He was very proud that I had a podcast. Like because I talked to someone who works there. She used to work at the aquarium too. And I was like, hey, what hints do you have for me to tell him, or talk to him about? He's like, talk about how much you hate because he hates him too. And talk about your podcast about, bridging this gap of science versus, hobbyists and trying to teach people. And he like talked about my podcast for like a half hour or something ridiculous. Like the interview was an hour and a half long. And like for a quarter of that, he was like, so what kind of things do you guys cover on your podcast? And I'm like, not saying how many people actually watch our podcast at all. Or
it doesn't matter. It's that extracurricular stuff that we had to do if we were getting into a college. Like what else did you have on your resume other than just like I showed up and did it?
Yeah.
You're enthused about what you do. You have a passion for what you do.
Well,
someone would want to hire someone with a passion more than just, hey, I need a paycheck, because it's like at the end of the day, they ain't gonna care about the job. So
Yeah, doing
Good.
pre-med. This is probably good for my resume, but I wasn't doing it for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you still in pre-med? I'm curious.
Reasons.
Okay. then be fighting words.
No, it's just a direction I feel I need to go, so I'm gonna go.
His calling. It's his calling.
It's his calling in life. He's going to rip open the intestines of someone and then shove them back inside.
You know why?
Something like that.
Because he's edgy as heck.
Edgy as heck. We edgy over here.
And he's just got some rainbows, so what are you going to do about that?
I just noticed you were making a comment about his jacket. Or his shirt. Yeah.
Well, and then I do have the jacket on the tank to prevent the red light from getting in there, but
Oh, how's that working out?
I don't know if it is, because I think what happened is I replaced the light on that tank because it was like dying. And it's a really bright light, and I think it's just got like too much usable light, so all the algae is just like going nuts.
Oh, yeah. Balancing things out.
Yeah, I probably need to give it like a siesta or something.
The par and purr, man. We were talking about it last week.
Par and
Yep.
purr.
Does anybody remember what we did also talk about last week? Because I feel like it was a century ago sometimes, but I know we talked about par and purr, and I know we talked about our fish that we like to keep.
We talked about the Saving Nemo.
Oh, we did talk
yeah,
about
that was a big
Talked
part of
about
it too.
the poor fish in the tank that certain cultures like to post of like non-cycled tanks, and they dump in 50 goldfish in 2 gallons.
if that.
It's heartbreaking. Then people are like, "Can I do this?" And it's like, "No, you
No,
should
do not do this.
Never.
Don't follow a random TikToker. This is not a good thing."
Never do this. It's
What
horrible.
else? I can't think of anything else.
I can't remember what the questions were.
Okay. Yeah, neither can I. It just goes to show how well our attention span is when we're just info dumping all of our stuff. So
We're just all like fish.
it's true. Definitely true.
I think I made a meme, and I'll have to post it somewhere. It was basically just like, the never ask a man about his salary, a woman her age, and I'm like, an aquarist about fish, because you're going to be there a long time.
Kyle about plants.
Yep.
And light.
I'd imagine if we got a
you have a bunch of people over, and then the one guy's like, "Oh, this is a cool little tank with the plants." Like nobody else cares about it, and you're like, "Oh, you want to hear about it?"
It's like the one guy with the guitar, right?
Oh,
So anyway, here's Wonderwall.
Yeah. No. I play guitar, and I never carry it around for that reason. I never want to be that guy.
What? So you're not Noel and Liam Gallagher?
No. No. I refuse to carry it around.
Yeah. Well, now that we've proven that we are actual flesh bags, because that's important, right? Kind of some of the stuff that's going on in the world of aquariums this week. There isn't honestly that much, but some of the things that I did see, there was one, or actually two. Someone is retrofitting cheap, basically Chinese lights, and they're rigging them up with Raspberry Pi Picos to be able to make them smart lights. So you can control the dimming zones, you can control the light color spectrums that are being shown, aka turning your $50 light into a $400 light over just for another $15. So
with Raspberry Pi, yeah.
Is it
with
easy
Raspberry
to do?
Pi. It's from what I saw, and mind you, this is someone who's done a little bit of Raspberry Pi-ish work. I use Linux mostly stuff at home anyway, but yes and no. You just have to download the script, and then you have to assign the relays for the lights, because the power consumption in the lights are too high of wattage to go through the Raspberry Pi. And so you'll use 3 to 4 relays to basically make it so that way the power goes through something instead of directly to the board.
I do that every day. So it's pretty easy then. Pretty
Yeah,
easy.
it's fairly easy. I mean, yeah. But I think the issue is that he's not planning on publishing his script at all for it. So like I gave this idea, this works, but I'm not going to give it to you.
Look what I can do. Look what I can
Yeah,
do.
basically.
Look what I can
A
do.
magician never reveals his tricks.
There you go.
And then the other thing that I saw this week was someone was using the Apex Fusion system. I don't know if either of you guys dealt with Apex at all? Have you guys ever heard of it?
That's the reef side of things.
Yeah, it's on the Reef side of things.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So it's a really expensive all-in-one system, right? So like it's got a smart power bar, it's got sensors built into it that you can drop in the water, so it takes pH and like temperature consistently. They even have like a doser and a reagent like add-on, so you can actually do chemical tests too automatically. They have an outflow, inflow like valve that's controlled too.
Yeah.
But each and every one of these parts is like $400 each. So like by the
Yeah.
time you end up with the entire setup, it's close to like 11 to 12 grand. But someone has trained an AI learning model to run their tanks for them completely unmanned,
Sign me up.
using the Apex and an AI model to run it for them.
That's crazy.
So yeah. It's true
I love
aquatic aqueous as a aquarist as a profession there.
Yeah.
Just sell them all of the stuff and then take the subscription.
I mean, that's what the Raspberry Pi guy could do, is just make it a subscription service.
I mean,
Done.
yeah. Anything else from you guys? Did you guys find anything at all?
No, man, when I was putting together the script, I was like, I have heard nothing from the aquarium world.
That's fun.
No.
We've been
But
pretty dead.
I haven't heard much from the real world anyway.
New product
Sounds-
releases.
For who?
Fluval has that. Oh, I almost said it. Not great CO2 system. Isn't that obvious? No. It's not a great CO2 system. It's like they call them regenerators, where you mix in yeast and sugar or citric acid and whatever.
And yeah.
It doesn't look. It's like, just make a good CO2 system by now. Like I don't understand. There's like other companies, like I'm a Tropica retailer, and even they have that little like squirt can of like CO2 that like that's so far from what tanks need as like an automated CO2 system. Like the same thing. I think it may have a solenoid, so they may be able to like, yay, but it's just make one already. Like I don't understand the whole.
At what point do you just go out to go buy a big 5-pound bottle and then use that for months, right? Because
that's the point. Like I don't understand the shortcutting of products. Like we'll make like a not great to mediocre product, and we'll release that. Like just don't release one, or make one that's great. Make one that's keeping up with everyone else. I don't get the.
Kyle, you're overthinking this. Profit. Profit over anything.
Yeah, right.
If we make it as cheap as possible, but make it look quality, we can sell a lot more.
I feel like that's definitely what
this
Fluval
like
thinks.
little canister.
That's what every big company thinks.
So yeah, they got something. I mean, again, I'm like, and like you said, all you need is a 5-pound cylinder, a regulator, and a wall timer, and off you go. Like big gear, tubing and a little diffuser, but like that's the bulk of it. Like, and there's companies like I really love Edison. I just find them a good like price for quality type thing. I mean, but even in CO2R, any of those, just go out and be done with it. Like, but what bothers me is those that know better won't buy it, but they're preying on those that don't know better, right?
Yeah.
So then,
that's definitely true.
Yeah. So like,
was it like the Apple gaming system? There's a reason why you haven't heard of it. Or if you have heard of it, you know what I'm talking about.
No.
The Pippin died because it was already dead to begin with. It's just there's idiots who decided to buy it.
Yeah. Just taking advantage of hobbyists. It's like their
Yeah.
3.0 light. I just hate it. It's like, just get a standard WRGB light like everyone else. They have like warm white, off white, pink. Like, what?
Well,
What?
we're dealing with people who are willing to drop like what, a couple $100 on a single fish. Yeah, they're gonna drop a bunch on a CO2 system. Why not? It's for the fish.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
even if you wanted to do it on a budget, you can get your own acid and baking soda at your house. Like, I guarantee you have some form of acid in your house, aka vinegar. It won't be the best CO2 producing thing, but like, it's definitely like a square better than most.
Well, and here's the even better part. You're doing cellular respiration all the time. You are producing CO2. If we could find a way to bottle that,
Just blowing into your tank.
get like an
What are you-
airline tube. And
What are you doing? Doing CO2 for the tank. Like,
Don't
yeah.
stop.
You know that I had a
Stop.
conversation with someone who said that would work, and I had to convince them that it would not, because oxygen and CO2 diffusion does not work on molecular levels like that.
I would believe it, unfortunately.
He probably had a tube. He was sitting there next to his tank. Like, let's do this. He worked from home, just like,
Get like one of those respirators that has like a two-way valve, right? So you can like breathe in and then just breathe out straight into
Yeah.
the tank
yeah, got a check valve on it.
all the time.
Done.
Oh yeah.
Extra points if you can vape into it. You know what I mean? Fish love it.
Vape Nation, y'all.
Don't give your fish nicotine. Don't give anything living nicotine, because we've done it. We have done it. So like we did a study in invertebrate zoology on like myofauna and trying to figure out if they are affected by caffeine and nicotine. And so we gave a bunch of brine shrimp a bunch of nicotine, like I'm talking 100 like milligrams, and they all literally got so energetic that they died because they overheated.
So we're talking like crack for brine shrimp.
Yes.
My
Fun
fishies look
fact: brine
tired.
shrimp can handle caffeine.
My fishies look tired. Should I give them an energy drink?
Yes.
Yes,
Good.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Vape
Especially
in
those
the-
ones with like the electrolytes in them. You know, the good stuff. We don't give them like Red Bull.
I think next week we are going to have to talk about the entire week about things that are a myth in the chemistry world, not only just the aquarium one, like liquid CO2, that's a myth. Electrolytes in water, that's a myth.
Well, it depends on what your definition of electrolyte is.
I mean, if it's a
Because you
Hansen
have
Bowery definition of electrolyte, then it's just the ability to dissociate one hydrogen atom.
I thought you have
Burn.
like strong, weak electrolytes, you know, things that will like completely dissociate in water and things that won't completely dissociate in water, which is where you get your strong and weak bases and acids from.
That's where I was going with that, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I am
saving
paying attention in chemistry class, I promise.
To be fully honest, when it comes down to it, because I'm a geochemist over anything else, I only care about dissolution and solubility rules. That's it. So even electrolytes, don't care. Don't care less.
Yeah, that's fair. Best Gatorade. You don't even need Gatorade. Those sports drinks are cracked up.
H2O.
You just need to drink fish tank water.
that you've blown
Would not recommend, because it'd be horrible tasting.
I've had to manually start a siphon once, and it was my first time doing a siphon. I was treating my tank with like ICX at the moment, and got it right in my mouth, and I was like almost throwing up. It was bad.
So, do you want to hear the meanest prank I feel like I have ever pulled to someone in the aquarium hobby ever?
Uh,
Uh-oh.
So I was working at the aquarium, and someone needed to do a water change on the shark tank that we have. It's 30,000 gallons or something like that. And obviously, you're going to need a big siphon, right? You need to be able to actually dive and get down there and get it all out. And they did not know that the theoretical limit of a human sucking from a tube is 29 feet. That's the theoretical as much vacuum pressure you can build in your mouth as a human to get it through the tube. It was a 100-foot long siphon, and I declined to share that information with them until about 15 minutes after.
dude.
And so they were standing next to the bucket just
It's gonna come at some point. I can feel it.
Even if it was like an airline tube or something stupid like
yeah,
that.
no, any thickness, well, I guess it also depends on resistance, right? But any siphon, at least in the aquarium hobby that you're going to deal with, the limit is 29 feet. So
That's a bummer.
Interesting.
Gave it the old college try.
I didn't even learn that from any marine classes whatsoever. That came from ecology. He was like, fun fact, this is about the human mouth. And I was like, okay, cool, great. I guess I get to learn this.
I mean, you want to think about ecology. The human mouth is, in fact, an ecosystem of its own.
Stop trying to throw us into the Twilight Zone, please.
We shall call it a mini ecosystem. What is
All
this
right.
channel anyways? What are we talking about?
We're talking about
We
fish.
have Edison. What are the questions? I don't
Oh.
have them up.
We got a couple good ones. So this is one that I was like, okay, this is a good question. Somebody asks, how important are water changes in a heavily planted tank? And then there's a little explanation. He says, I ask this because my tank is 5 months old, super healthy, and heavily planted. Never changed the water. Top up once a week for evaporation, testing water regularly, no issues. Where do you draw the line? How many plants is enough?
For someone who follows Father their fish, or the Walstad method,
Yeah.
where
Which
if it's
they're
fine, I don't
great.
touch it.
Right. Both of those methods, at least the Walstad method, has been tested. And I've had a conversation with Diana Walstad before, and she told me the science behind why she did what she does. But yeah, definitely someone in that frame that I'm gonna just leave my tank and have it, go.
Elaborate on the discussion you had with Walstad and why she does what she does. Because a lot of people will follow her blindly. I was one of them many years ago, keeping in mind that her book was produced in the middle of the 90s.
She
But give
actually
context.
she did an update on it last
Yeah,
year.
she
actually.
just released a new one.
I saw that.
This last year. But it was actually when I was looking for grad school programs, because again, going back to me wanting to be able to better the hobby somehow with my graduate degree, right? And not actually being able to do it anyway. But North Carolina State at Chapel Hill is where she did all of her basically understudy from the person who did develop the Walstad method and kind of shoehorned it into this big hobbyist thing instead of a scientific research, right? So she did what most we do, right? She took a lot of scientific material that was done by another professor and made it very transferable into the aquarium hobby in the form of a book that is very conversational and not very textbook-esque, right? But outside of that, she excels mostly in shrimps. So when we talked about what we talked about, because I didn't want her to be a master's advisor, right? Because she was an English professor, right? So I can't do that. But from what we talked about, she was like, the entire time I was writing the book, I was expected and kind of looking into doing more invertebrate-based tanks. Low bioload tanks is what she called them, but things that were containable and that kind of stuff. And she herself has said that she didn't expect a lot of people to take to heart the Walstad method at first, right? Because it's in a textbook. But she also expected people to more lean into the invertebrate side of it instead of the fish only side of things. And so at least that's what we talked about. We also talked about current professors that are currently adding to the Walstad method in the way that some of them are and some of them aren't. So the Walstad method has been in place, right? But the only things that are changing are the types of ecology inside the actual soils and the types of soils, and not really the method itself, right? The method itself is just unchanging when it comes to that. I guess that's also part of the problem too, right? Because that method was developed in 1990s and someone finds it online, they're going to be like, oh, dude, this is awesome. Let's put some soil in this tank, cap it off, and then put a bunch of stuff in it. And then, well, in actuality, the 90s had a lot cleaner soil than we do now, personally. But yeah.
A lot less microplastics.
Yeah, that's true too.
Funny, that wouldn't have never come to mind. The fact that soil have been contaminated over this long, to the point where dumping soil in your tank, fresh soil or just earth, that you have access to, would be an issue. But
Well,
I
and in her book, The Ecology of the Planted Aquarium, great book, recommend it wholeheartedly. She does say you don't want to just dump soil in there and just, because there's a lot of things going on in the soil. It's very active. It's very lively. You want to give it time to adjust before you actually start adding fish in there.
settle down, mellow out.
Yeah.
See, I'm in like direct opposite camp. Even reading Ecology of a Planted Aquarium. I mean, it's like, and then people argue, oh well, check this out. This is it. No water changes. Like, you just have this running ecosystem, and it's fine. And it's like, yeah, we used to not wear seatbelts in the '60s, and people used to smoke pregnant. It's like, we don't do that anymore. Like, there's a reason to some extent why, from my mindset, stuff has moved on. We know better. We know more. And two, you hear about this tanks crashing, or what was another one? There's another term for it. End of life kind of thing. It ran its cycle. The whole thing crashed. It's like, well, it
Old
doesn't
tank
have to
syndrome.
crash. Yeah, there you go. Old tank syndrome. Like, it's old because you just neglected the heck out of it. Like, so I don't get it. I'm a big proponent, even in planted aquariums. Like, these closed systems enjoy fresh water, like, to some extent. And I stumbled across something in forms of Tom bars, and I only knew them as dissolved organic compounds, or DOCs, because I'm ignorant to what happens after nitrates. And it's not NO4, it's something else. But does it get converted after that?
To be honest, most of the time it just ends up as sludge. But
Is that what it is? The output? Because that's where I just see tanks when they don't have water changes, they look like swamps. They look like Dustin's fish tanks. They look like swamps. Like, to me, I don't appreciate that look. Not saying that if someone else does, they can't. Like, each his own. But, like, it don't look thriving by any means,
And I think it also goes in a little bit further, because even if they were using the Walstad method, most of the Walstad method covers things like floodplain and like stream ecology type of soils, not anything that you would like imaginally think is the bottom of a lake, basically, right?
Yeah.
Because
she talked about, if I remember, a tub as a
Yeah.
kid that she would dump guppies into, and that would just get like rainwater, and like that was like the start of this playing around. Where then people take that to like 120 something gallon. I don't have to do anything to it. I just throw some dirt in it. Like,
again,
I
it's
feel like
kind of
taken
that
out of
whole
context,
it's that whole thing about the bridge between scientists and hobbyists. This is, I mean, my ichthyology professor, he literally hates people who talk about betas in his class, because they're the worst sort of people. They always ask like, oh, why is my beta dying? What kind of system do I need to keep it alive? What kind of system do I need to have? What kind of tank do I need to have? And as an ichthyologist and as someone in the scientific community, technically all you need is water movement and water displacement with fresh water, right? Those are the two things, at least, or a way to get rid of the bad water, I guess. And in nature, that happens through evaporation, that happens through different types of like mixing processes and limnological processes. But in the home, those processes don't exist. We're not going to have an annual seasonal turnover in our tanks because they're the same temperature every year. If they did, that'd be really funny to watch. But it's the same problem, because I would talk to him pretty regularly about the types of fish that we would be going over. Mind you, most of all of my program was sport fish. It was never hobbyist. The only hobbyist stuff I went into was guppies and goldfish. That's it. Maybe a wrath for the saltwater side. But like,
and juicing brine fish up, or brine shrimp.
Yeah, well, that was invertebrate zoology. I had a lot more fun in that class. But when push comes to shove, he would always make the same point. He's like, so is the fish alive? Yeah. Then I guess it's thriving in its environment. Right? And that's what the scientific community says, is a small
Black
tank
and
is
white.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where you get to the gray area. Like we were talking about with the rainbow fish. I guess it's what you want your tank to do, what you want your tank to look like, how you want to run that tank. Do you want a low maintenance tank? Do you want a high maintenance tank? Do you want these kind of fish? Do you want those kind of fish? What do you want your tank to look like? You can make a black water biotope that looks like a floodplain, that looks like, these Walstad tanks. You can do something in between. You can do, like Father Fish talks about these like resurrection jars. They're kind of cool. You just go out, find a lake, put some stuff in there, and then just let it run its course. Because there's living things all around, and I think it depends entirely on what you're going for.
Your goal, desired outcome, for sure.
And so, in my mind, kind of like the ichthyology professor, if your water parameters are fine, there's no ammonia, there's no nitrite, there's little nitrate, and the fish are thriving, they're reproducing, what does it matter?
It's true. So what if you were to make a anti-Diana Walstad method, Kyle, like AKA, what would you do other than the Walstad method in place? Like, instead of the soil bound and kind of capped tanks, what do you prefer over that, and why, I guess?
Is that assuming that the Walstad method is like a low maintenance kind of hands off type tank?
Sure.
Like, what is the goal of the Walstad?
The Walstad method, I feel like, and this is my own kind of opinion, but it was to always be better at growing plants than traditional other methods. I think that's one of the big key things. And then the second
we
thing
know
would
straight
be
out
the low
CO2
maintenance
injection is gonna make plants go crazy. It's gonna be the equivalent of handing brine shrimp nicotine, right? Like, so this is the funny thing for me is like, I want to learn about the science of these tanks so I can learn about the deficiencies and then jack up the deficiencies. So we know we can pump a bunch of light and nutrients in a tank. We're high up, and then we have little to no CO2. Why not bring that up too? And then everything's up, everything's happy. Like, so that's what and sorry I cut you off. That's what I don't get it.
It's okay. I get it. And definitely in our world and day and age right now, right? CO2 is the limiting, reactant for a lot of plants, right? And so it's one of those things that you really have to ask, if you want it to be as nature-like as possible, no CO2. But if you want it to look really good, CO2 it, right?
And that's why I asked what the goal is. So let's assume that the Walstad method is low maintenance, as little time on the tank as possible, which is totally fine. It doesn't mean your tank has to look like a swamp in order to achieve that. You can stick with just straight epiphytes, mosses, that's it, and have a gorgeous looking epiphyte tank. No soil, no aqua soil. Keep it cheap. You could do sand. You could do a
Mhm.
natural looking gravel hardscape. Build it up. Um, I mean, that tank would allow you to even skip water changes. I hate that I'm saying that, but to some degree, if someone can't, shoot, they're in Nebraska for a month, every other month, like I would suggest that system to someone because that meets up with their lifestyle. Like if someone is always traveling, then you do not want a high energy CO2 injected auto dosing type tank. You have to be there because if stuff goes off the rails, it's going to go off bad. So
It's
it's
true.
all in design, and I feel like you have to have expertise to understand. Okay, I have this much time, I have this much money right now, and then design around it. It would be like asking someone to design an efficient engine and not having any mechanical background, right?
Knowledge. Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of where I think creditable sources come in, which we have a handful of them now, which is great. But they can kind of help push people into these. Hey, if you don't have a lot of time, money, and you don't want to be doing water changes, go this route.
Hmm.
But I feel like too, as hobbyists, we're just kind of trotting along our path, and we're like, oh, this fish looks cool, plop. Oh, this plant looks cool, plop. You know, like, and it's fine because that's the joy of the hobby is exploring.
Edison just did it.
What? Oh, tossing rainbows in.
Yep. So I
But
have like 3 kinds of rainbows in my tank, my big tank.
oh, but that's it. That's the fun part about it. But we can paint ourselves into a corner where and I hate to see it. You know, like someone will plant dwarf hairgrass in like white gravel, and I'm like, that thing's gonna. You're just gonna watch that thing die, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, so it's there are better ways to do what Diana was doing. Now, I think I would steer people away if they want a low maintenance tank. Don't even do soil. Don't even bother with it. Get away from it. And then if you want to do stems and stuff, even just sticking with an aqua soil, some liquid ferts and a decent light, not even anything crazy, you can get really good results.
Yeah. I definitely
Rant
agree with
over.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess in summation, it depends on your lifestyle and how you want to run your tank. If you want
Yeah.
less water changes, design a tank that way. If you want, a plant biotope that, has crazy plant growth that, can sustain plants that otherwise wouldn't be able to be sustained in an aquatic setting, go for that. It's really a hobby based around what you want.
Yeah. And I guess that
And
also kind of addresses the question that were asked. It was like how it like important water changes in heavily planted tanks, right? It They're always going to be important. Water changes are always going to be important regardless of what tank you have. But um, are there ways and are there biotopes and ecosystems that you can recreate that make it less? Yeah, we just went over that, right? So um, and also it takes time too, right? We're talking about this thing like someone is setting it up, right? And they're not going to know how often they're going to need to do water changes for at least the first year of it being, or I guess the first 6 months, right? They're going to have to monitor the chemical, like kind of influx, outflux, monitor their feeding. And then after a while, sure, it becomes second nature. Like for me at the aquarium, I would just do the same water change I do every week because I knew after like 2 months, it's always going to look like this chemically. So why not take more out, take less out? Still do the chemical testing, but like for the bare minimum, right? I would do the exact same thing because I knew it was working. And so, yeah, it just takes time too.
Well, and yeah, like you say, it's about knowing your tank. Um, like my big tank, I've had it up and running the longest of my tanks at the moment, and it just I've got it to a point where the ecosystem just kind of manages itself. I just do top offs, and if I have to dose for some sort of illness, which doesn't come up often, I do water changes to get the medication out. But otherwise, it just keeps going. And I think that's the cool thing about life is that life always kind of finds a way. Um, I wouldn't
You
recommend.
being philosophical.
Yes, I'm being philosophical. I wouldn't recommend, actively fighting life and trying to kill your fish by putting them in a tiny bowl with no plants and just, no water changes. No. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that life is kind of about balance, if you want to think about it in a way. It's about creating order out of chaos, and life just kind of does that. And so it
Technically
depends.
speaking, life is chaos out of order. Just saying.
Depends on how you want to look at it, I guess, because we're philosophical here. But the main point I'm trying to make is it's all about a balance. You can't just say like the Walstad method is the only way to maintain a tank, right? Or CO2 is the only way to keep plants alive and healthy. Obviously, you need CO2 for plants, but injecting CO2 doesn't necessarily mean that your plants won't do well. It depends on the setup. It depends on, and
Depends on other nutrients too. But
oh, absolutely. Of my 5 tanks, I think they all have very different ecosystems that you can even look at and say, wow, that looks completely different than that tank. And I'm using the same water. You know? And so you have to kind of know your tank. You have to let it mature, let it have a personality in a sense, because it's its own sort of thing.
it's definitely true. Yeah.
So let your tank do what it's going to do, and you decide how you want to do that.
I think for this person specifically, though, I would just test their water just as regularly as you can, and then if you start to notice patterns, take action, right? Because at a certain point, those patterns are going to get worse, and so just don't be a lazy fish keeper. I know that that's easier said than done, but just don't be a lazy fish keeper.
Right.
Question 2: are plants necessary for an aquarium? Why or why not?
No, next
Kyle
question.
talk first.
No, I mean, excuse me. No.
That's weird to hear from the plant guy.
You can no. I'm not
No,
gonna
yeah,
blow
I mean
smoke.
it's
Anyone, you could have pink gravel and just water and keep goldfish. Like if that's what you want to do, that it's
and
fine.
That's exactly what we were trying to say in the last question too. You set up your tank how you want to do a tank. Obviously, you're going to need more filtration. You're going to need more water changes. You're going to need to keep a better eye on things. But your ecosystem is yours. You set it up how you want. I mean, you can't keep an Oscar cichlid with a lot of plants because, well, it's going to eat them. It's going to tear them up.
It'll eat the plastic ones too, by the way. Just saying.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
Oscar the
Right.
grout of fish.
Yeah,
just
I know.
in there with them, it's gone.
Right. And people have kept Oscars well enough that they breed in captivity without the plants. And so it's just how you want your tank, what kind of fish you want, and how you want it to look. If you want that rainbow barf gravel, you get that rainbow barf gravel with no plants and just that little SpongeBob house. And
Done.
You do that and you do your water changes. And, it's like that's, you set up a tank for a kid. That's what a kid wants. They don't want like this natural looking thing. They want their decorations.
Now,
you're doing your fish a disservice by not putting plants in it. Just saying.
What'd you say?
Right? So so here's a good example. In a lot of big saltwater tanks, you have a refugium. Why?
Yeah.
Refugiums literally
extract nutrients.
Yeah.
Unwanted nutrients.
Yeah. And so it doesn't even need to be seen, but it's something that you could still use to help your tank be healthy.
Right.
And that's what I was going to go. I was going to say, we answered the question of no, you don't need plants. Like, next question, jokingly. But for those that don't have plants, they do provide benefit and they provide balance and they provide safety nets for certain things like ammonia and other stuff like that. So, no, you do not need them. But are you doing the system a favor at all? No. Plants will help. But then you get into, okay, then you have to have a kind of an understanding of what a plant needs as well. and try to kind of go down that rabbit hole, which I will say plants are far more picky than fish are. You can literally, like I said, plop a fish in water with pink gravel and off you go. You try to do that with most plants, and they're not going to be happy. So um, it's hard, you know. It's another rabbit hole to go down. I just try to tell people like start off with fish, learn fish. Um, learn to read signs of sickness, like learn feeding habits, learn stocking, learn, there's so much to learn with just fish. Then go into plants or pick one. Don't try to, like, people are like, I want to do a heavily planted CO2 injected caridina tank, and it's like that's a lot to chew if you're not used to any of those. Like, and I'll help people, but they'll burn through a couple rounds of shrimp before they figure it out, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
Well, and like you were saying, my big tank, hornwort just explodes in that tank. And if I put it in my beta tanks, it just dies. I don't know what the difference is. I use the same water. I use the same food. I use, everything that's going in.
You're the problem.
I'm the problem.
I'm the problem. It's me.
It's me.
And that's kind of what I was saying, is that like different ecosystems have different needs. You have to research as much on the plants as you do the fish to know their care requirements, what you need, and it's really just how you want to set up your tank.
Don't do plants. Just don't do them. Stay away from them. Says the plant guy. Just avoid them.
Says someone who has a website and their entire life devoted to plants right now. So, I mean, it's okay, but
no, yeah. Just don't bite off more than you can chew. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of learning.
Right, and so it's all about. And in my experience, I'm a depressed, lazy guy. I just like to put plants that are going to thrive in my tank, and then just let what happen. And if they thrive in there, cool. If not, then I'll go find a different plant that will.
Yeah,
done and done.
Yeah. So I hope that answered that question. Ooh, I'd like to talk about this question.
Yes, we'll get into this one. I'll read it for you, so you can go first. How to tell if a tank is overstocked?
Okay, so inner ecologist is going to go on a little rant, probably not a very long one, hopefully. But the methods that AquaAdvisor uses, right, online to figure out stocking capacities is based off of 3 different types of carrying capacity: chemical, environmental, or biological, either or, depending on which one you want to do, and physical, right? Chemical, how much waste is being produced by a specific species at specific times. Fun fact, there is no model or system or proxy to say, I have this fish, therefore it produces this much waste at this much time. So it would be a concentration at a given time, basically, is the unit of measurement that we would end up using. But that doesn't exist. That's originally what I wanted to do my master's in limnology, was figuring out different of those constants, basically trying to figure out mathematically, you put this fish inside this big of a tank, how soon will it be before it can no longer be in that tank, or how much waste per hour per day that it actually contributes to it. And I was told no, obviously, but the researchers that based AquaAdvisor off of, they built this whole model off of these 3 ecological carrying capacities. And when we say carrying capacity, right, it's the capacity that a habitat or something like a population has to sustain a size of a population, where birth rates and death rates are equal to each other, basically. And so I guess when it comes down to it, scientifically, there is nothing we can do to prove that a tank is overstocked, technically. We can prove that it's freaking disgusting, and we can say those fish are probably very uncomfortable because they're swimming right up against each other. But scientifically, on paper, there's no mathematical formula, right? And I guess that's kind of the end of my rant, is sometimes overstocking is something that we need to kind of guess. It's not a black and white. It's very fluid when it comes to science, at least. So
Right. Aqua Advisor is a good starting place. I'm not gonna knock on it. Really great, and it's free tool. You know, it's a good starting place. And if you don't know anything about keeping fish, I would wholeheartedly recommend following Aqua Advisor's recommendations. Now, if you've been keeping fish for a couple years, you can fudge the numbers.
yeah, my tank is technically overstocked.
My tank is way overstocked on Aqua
Well,
Advisor.
yeah, I was about to say yours is like insanely overstocked. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, I think I'm at like 150% on Aqua Advisor. But here's the thing. You know, I see this question all the time on Reddit, and so I kind of like typed out this response because I could just copy and paste it. But I figure in my judgment call is based on three things: the chemistry of the tank. Are my water parameters good? Can I keep my water parameters stable? Is my pH good? Is my water able to handle all these fish without constantly fluctuating? If yes, then we're good on that front. The second one is like swimming space. You know, cories and rainbow fish, for example, are going to occupy different parts of the tank. I don't really see my cories and rainbow fish interact at all. Not to say that they don't, but you know, you can overstock the bottom and have like nothing on top, but Aqua Advisor will still say you're not overstocked. And so swimming space, you know, actual physical space, where's the fish going to be? How's it going to interact? And do the fish feel and look crowded? If not, then you're fine. And then the third one is aggression, because obviously once the space starts getting smaller, even peaceful fish will start getting aggressive. If your fish cannot get along, there's a problem with your stocking.
And I guess also along with those, if they can't find a place to hide, right? So we're talking about the importance of plants and aquariums, right? So I feel like when it comes down to it, overstocking and stocking an aquarium is different for planted tanks when it comes to aggression specifically, right? Because if you're giving fish and things a place to hide, they're going to be less aggressive. That's just nature.
Right. And so that's kind of my rules of thumb on overstocking or stocking a tank. You know, are the fish happy? Do they look happy? Are they fighting each other? Is the water stable? And, you know, do they have enough room to swim?
A lot of these questions are pushing boundaries. Like, how little water changes do I have to do? How many fish can I put in a tank before it blows up? You know,
or
like,
maybe you're being the glass half empty type person right now then.
oh, that's me to a T. Anyone that knows me, man, I'm a happy pessimistic at heart. But yeah, it's funny on the aquascaping side of things, you do not see heavily stocked tanks. They just it's more about the design, the overall design of the tank, than it is about how many fish can I pack into this 40-gallon. And it's too organics, free organics, you know, that haven't been processed out yet. Will feed algae, you know. So a lot of times these like clean looking aquascapes, we try to just keep all organics down so that we can have control over them through fertilization. So they'll have, you know, 40-gallon with like a handful of neos in it, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So you know, it's interesting too, I guess, but that's from like a plant perspective, you know, where if you're into fish more, then yeah, you're going to want to have these like, you know, mini ecosystems within the ecosystem where, you know, some of the territories. And I remember too, back in the day, you know, certain fish like to stay at the top, middle, and bottom. And, you know, that even plays into, you know, where they're hanging out, which is if they can be kept together. But I don't know. I from my perspective, whatever that 2 cents, whatever that cares for someone is just nitrates in general. If they're climbing and you can't control them, and you're doing like 100% water changes every 3 days, like yeah, you probably have a problem, you know?
Yeah, you probably have
Uh,
too many fish inside your tank.
yeah, like that's kind of an easy way, especially for newbies, like, or, you know, if ammonia is just getting too high. I mean, you can look at filtration, but like if you've got a ton of filtration on it and you still have ammonia, nitrates are skyrocketing, like the system isn't balanced. You're putting too much input and you're getting this too much output
Yeah.
coming out. Like, but
Well,
the Aqua Advisor, it is a, as you guys both said, it is a great starting point. I just would say don't go straight to 100%. Like start at 60, start at
If
75%.
you,
Like
odds are the person that has who ran into Aqua Advisor is not the first time buyer of a fish. I want to like. I feel like the percentage of someone who is going to buy a fish in a fish tank for the first time is probably only like 5% of that entire website. The people that go are probably people that are looking to expand, looking to
push the
change it
limits
up, push limits, get everything different, right?
for sure.
But yeah, I definitely agree with you. If you ever buy a tank and you're thinking about it, because my brother did this and he didn't listen to my advice, so I guess what about the rest of the
Brothers,
world?
brothers.
Brothers, of course. But just do your research. You like Aqua Advisor is there to help you, and you don't even need to use it technically. You know that a goldfish is a lot dirtier of a fish than a cory. You know that the bioload is a lot more, right? You could just
or an ember
cognitively
catcher,
think
right?
just well, yeah, right. And so like just cognitively think just a little bit about it before you start throwing a bunch of comet goldfish inside of a bucket.
Right. And I think stocking also for like newbies is you have to understand you need so much water to diffuse so much waste. You don't just have a fish in water. It doesn't stay like that, right? We're literally taking oxygen and converting it into carbon dioxide through respiration. There is chemical changes happening to the water. If you don't have enough water to fish ratio, it's not going to stay stable and the fish needs stability.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Word.
Anything else to add, Kyle?
Nope.
Okay. Um, question number 4. How much, I don't want to say sand, but how much substrate is too much substrate?
General rule of thumb: 2 inches. Any more or less
It's
problematic.
Yeah.
I find for my tanks. Now, go ahead and shoot me if I'm wrong. Or roast me.
We'll hold you to it.
I find depending on the size of the tank, 2 inches is a good rule of thumb. But I find smaller tanks can do just fine with 1 inch, somewhere between an inch and 2, where bigger tanks do better with 2.
Or you could be really stupid like I did with my 90-gallon when I had it and bought an entire 2 things full of 50-pound bags of play sand and then threw it all into the tank. That was about 6 inches.
I've done that. I was saying on the last podcast last week is I did sand and I just got anaerobic conditions. It was too thick, so plant roots would rot and it just would smell. And I was like, "What the heck?" Like, I mean, I guess there is too much. Too much can be an issue. I think the too little thing comes into play when you're trying to plant stuff in it. Like, if you don't have a deep enough substrate, plant roots won't hold or take. Or if it's like too coarse of a substrate, there's not enough holding the plants down from a plant perspective. Um, I guess from a fish perspective, most fish don't care what the depth is. They'll care what type it is. I know some of that, but for
Like
the most part,
corridoras, obviously you want to give them a little bit less of a rough substrate, right? Or else they're going to cut up,
softer,
that kind of stuff.
more mellow.
Yeah. But
like,
for the most part,
they don't care.
Right. And I've literally had debates with people on internet forums where they're like, no, the rainbow barf gravel is bad for the fish. I'm like, no, it's not. As long as it's not leaching
it just
colors.
looks horrible. That's the only problem with it.
It's only aesthetically that it's wrong. You know what I mean?
To you, okay?
To you.
To you.
Like there was, for example, there was this one where I was really getting into it
Gonna
with
get
another
someone
Redditor.
online who's gonna come in and be like, excuse me, my daughter has this tank and it looks adorable.
I was literally getting into this with somebody because they were like, look, they were like, it's terrible for your fish. Your beta is going to be, so sad and depressed. And it's like the beta really doesn't care about the color of the gravel. It's not going to interact with the gravel enough to really care. You can put that rainbow barf gravel in there if you really feel you want to. You can put that SpongeBob decor in there or the little princess castle or whatever you want to put in that tank, so long as it's not leaching chemicals into the tank. It's just an aesthetic choice.
I feel like we need to create our own rainbow gravel and get into that market. I feel like there's a market we're missing out on.
Is rainbow gravel? I feel like that too, but knowing the energiologist of me, I'd be like, yellow, we can use sulfur for that. Pink, we can use potassium-based rocks.
Yeah, what if we made like
lithium?
natural,
Let's
natural looking
yeah, exactly.
aquarium
Right? Or
rainbow
like
barf
put
gravel.
uranium inside of a tank now because it's super yellow, right?
My fish has
Yay.
4 eyes. I feel like we're onto something, you guys. I feel like we're onto something.
Yeah. I feel like we could really, I mean,
Yeah, gravel substrate.
2 inches. 2 inches is our final answer.
2 inches. is
2
a good-
inches, lock it in.
Lock it in. 2 inches or less. I guess it depends on what you're doing. Again,
Yeah.
these are choices that you have to make with your research. Are you going to be doing a planted aquarium? Are you going to be doing a non-planted aquarium?
You do bare bottom. We don't even care.
Right.
No
Luke's
inches.
Goldfish, like, love that guy on TikTok. He breeds goldfish for a living. But he's trying to get like a green algae, like the hair algae, to grow on the bare glass, and I'm like, that would be a cool substrate.
Yeah, that looks trippy. It looks really weird. And then they'll clean the other side. Like they'll leave the back and the bottom wall like straight up algae ridden, and then they clean the rest. It looks pretty clean. I mean, it looks clean. I hope it's clean. I hope the water's okay.
A lot of people
know.
don't realize it, but when you have a lot of algae, it means that the water's usually clean because it's taking.
I'm trying to be pest. I'm trying to be glass half full, man.
Okay.
Pulling out.
Sorry.
No, yeah. This goes back to the water change thing. Do your water changes, man. There's no way around it. I don't know. At some point.
Do your water testing.
Changes.
Snap.
Do your water testing to know what water changes you're doing.
Or at least if you're doing enough too, right? Because I think that's another part of it. You can only do so much.
True.
Right. So I guess the theme of this episode,
Tangents,
but also the theme about on topic is aquariums are largely choice based. There's no one right way to set up an aquarium. There's no one right way to keep an ecosystem because life just kind of happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And creditable resources to figure some of that stuff out.
Yeah.
Before we end it real quick, what are credible resources that you guys go to for those that need it? Because the whole thing, do your research. I mean, you could find research that coffee is amazing for you, and you can find research that coffee will kill you tomorrow if you keep drinking it. Where do you guys go?
I don't want to say scientific research is definitely somewhere where you could go, but there is literally, I think EBSCO is one of the ones that I used to use. It's a library system that you would just go into and look up different topics. EBSCO is a really good one because it compiles data from multiple different sources. I don't want to say the USDA, but the USDA, I mean, they have really good limnological like resources. If you ever wanted to look for a paper to figure out like why nitrates are getting so high in lakes, or like why denitrification is happening in our earth right now, or why carbon sequestration is so big right now. All three of those topics, like The USDA publishes. It's by the government. They go out and they send out marine biologists, and also NOAA. NOAA has a really good resource library too. So,
realistically speaking,
the National Oceanic and Atmospheric of America Association, by the way, for NOAA. So NOAA.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, most, if not all, of the creditable resources are people who have experience. If you want to boil it down, people who have done scientific research, people who have kept aquariums forever.
Kyle is your resource. Go to him. Run to him as fast as possible.
He has a website.
Who's got
Everybody
a website
should just review bomb Kyle's website and like, hi, I need help. This is a picture of a beta in a cup. Can I get? Yeah, I know, right?
Well, and I think the other biggest thing to be aware of is don't just listen to only one source. That's how you get cults. And we don't want cultist aquarium keepers. That would be terrifying.
Praise Lord Edison.
Don't follow me. What I'm saying is that it's best to read multiple sources. This is how I figure out most of my stuff in fish keeping when I have a question. Is I will literally just Google it, read 5 to 10 sources, and figure out what data is the same and what data is different, and figure out how that, compile it basically. But, there's forums like Reddit where you can talk with people who are just starting out in aquariums, and people who, all the way to people who have like pioneered methods of keeping.
As soon as you get on there too.
Yep. That you can get anything on Reddit.
That's scary, but yeah. Did you guys want to do the big discussion topic or no? That's a Kyle question, because right now it is currently 10:23.
Well, I'm cool.
Edison?
Yeah, I'm down. We can make it quick.
We can make it quick, or
we can make it quicker.
Quicker, yeah, probably.
Quickish.
Keep it under 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. That sounds perfect. I can't remember what it was.
What's your hardest learned lesson in aquarium keeping?
It's a good one.
Like most expensive, most like traumatizing, most the hardest lesson you had to learn.
I see Kyle's brain turning. Gears.
I'll start.
You're such a freaking dad. I just want to say that.
That joke strong with this one. I don't know. I don't know if I have like an individual lesson, like something that, like cringeworthy. Like my first, I was saying in the last episode, I was putting neon tetra in a bowl with no filter, white gravel, and like they were dying and the water was turning milky, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? Daunting, like water chemistry, GHKH, doing okay-ish with my tanks and realizing that, I had a GH of 28 and a KH of like 24 living in Long Beach, California. Like, why did the fins on my Tetra melt within, 4 days? Like, so it's a lot of just ignorance over time. And it's, again, you go back to do your research and it's like, well, like, I don't even know what to research. Like, I'm so ignorant that like, at that point, I feel like you need a mentor. You need someone with experience. You need to follow one source and not a bunch of sources. Cause again, you can find that coffee kills you. And then it also makes you a superhuman, online, but it's just a lot of like ignorant failure over time, and then not learning how to correct that ignorance, and just waste a lot of time and money on fish. Yeah, and unfortunately, fish. Like,
and I think that's also part of the hobby too, right? no one
Yeah,
gets into this hobby and is going to be like, I am 100% perfect at this, right? So
yeah, and it happens. I mean, it's not. Um, Newbies will get really down on themselves if they kill something, almost to the point where it's like, I'm bad, I'm gonna stop. Like, and it's
yeah,
like, no, like you're drawn to this hobby for a reason. But again, I think the best thing someone can do is find someone who is where they want to be, and say, hey, will you mentor me? Hey, can I follow you? Hey, can I ask you questions? They'll get you so far. They'll get you to the point where they are, and then you find the next lily pad, and you continue to kind of elevate her up. And bonding with these people is like finding others that have the same passions that we do. um, but yeah, it's just a lot of ignorance over time. Looking back now, because I'm in year 19 at this point, um, and just yeah, there's a lot of education that we can have, but then pair it up with the experiences he was saying, and it just uh, rockets you. Like
yeah.
we're 2 steps ahead of a lot of people just kind of starting out, 2, 3 steps ahead. So that's my answer, I guess.
Edison.
All right, I guess I'll go next. Um, ooh, it's I guess the biggest one that was the most recent was probably like why we have quarantine tanks. First of all, second of
Oh,
all,
Oh yeah,
why we don't buy from big chain pet stores without a quarantine tank. How's that?
yeah.
And
I think that that's appropriate. Mind you, this might be spoiling a little bit, but when we do our first challenge, which by the way, I'm thinking is probably going to be next month, maybe
oh,
end of March, end of beginning of April. We're gonna draw straws, and someone's gonna get stuck with PetSmart, someone's gonna get stuck with Petco, and someone's gonna get stuck with the mom and pop stores. So, just that's coming up, and just be aware of that. So now make your comments.
okay, yeah. So one time I bought 2 guppies and a handful of neon tetras from PetSmart. Wasn't until I was walking out that I was like, that Molly over there has camellianus worms, and I was like,
Ooh,
was it in your
harsh.
well,
tank?
in a different tank. So I was like, maybe it's fine.
Oh,
Uh, three
same
tanks, ex-
system.
three
Yeah.
tanks,
Yeah,
yeah,
same sump, man.
yep, 3 tanks exploded later, um, with countless deaths and just I 2 of my tanks just like uncycled, like old tanks just uncycled because of the treatment and all the death and everything. It was just like, yeah, that was probably stupid.
Not fun.
Yeah.
Not fun.
The issue is that you even saw that, right? For the regular consumer, they're never going to notice that
Right.
unless they have an X out on the tank or like on the the badge like PetSmart does, right? They're not going to be like, "Oh yeah, this fish is healthy. I'm going to bring it home,"
Well,
right?
and then you have the whole retail side of it. Like corporate's going to get mad at you if you say you don't want to buy fish right now. Like an employee can't say that to people because
Oh
you know
yeah,
you're gonna have to wait 3 weeks to buy fish from us. Sorry, because we got to get rid of this worm infection. Nah, that's losing out on profits. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it's like I wish they would just take better care of their fish. The mom and pop store that I go to, they are super careful with their fish. They will literally if too many fish die from a shipment, they will literally just quarantine that tank. They have every tank set up different so that it's its own system in each individual tank. They will bleach their nets in between using them. They will, they're pretty OCD about it, and so they will literally just quarantine a whole tank if somebody gets something, anything, and if these fish come in unhealthy, they will quarantine that whole tank. They'll just say, nope, we're not. You don't want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with that. We're just gonna take the hit on it, and so I guess it's learning where to source your fish from.
yeah. That's definitely true. I feel like most fish, unless you get them from a local breeder or from someone that you know that's reputable, right? the issue is they're all based sourced from basically the same place.
And that's why it's like I like to go to this my local fish store, because most of the fish, like these Grimes River rainbow fish that I got, I didn't even quarantine them, even though I've learned this lesson, because I know they'd been sitting there for a couple weeks in that store, in that tank alone. And so I was like, because
Pop and top, baby.
yeah, I visit there regularly enough that I know enough of what's going on that I was like, I can just plop those in my tank.
I think that's too, like, I see it a lot with shrimp, and you get these breeders on eBay. Not to say that you can't get great breeders on eBay, but they get some planaria outbreak or something, and
Yeah.
it's like, where'd you get this? Some random guy on eBay. It's like, okay, well, there's a reason. Like these larger, more expensive breeders are more expensive for a reason. They're doing hopefully more precautionary measure type stuff. But yeah, definitely know who you're buying from. That's for sure.
But yeah, that lesson cost me my favorite angelfish.
Oh.
Yeah, she was super friendly, super personable, and she was the sweetest thing, and it cost me her and a bunch of other fish.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Angels live to be long. They live to be old, man. They got a
Yeah.
3 or 4 year old angel at one point. I had to give him back to a local fish store because he got so big and aggressive. And they're like, "We'll take him." Like they had a big old angel tank, and that dude looked small in that tank, but he was eating neons. He got so big, man.
Wow. Yeah, the local fish store that I stop at, they have a cobalt blue angelfish, really pretty thing. She's like big.
Yeah,
Yeah, they get
they'll get
massive.
massive
They do
too,
get massive if they're taken care of properly.
if happy.
Yeah. All right, Chris.
Okay. There's a couple lessons, right? Like I feel like that's one of the big things that we've kind of figured out, is that we've learned a lot just in general. Um, there is one specific one. So there's two specific ones. One, you're as a newbie, you're always overfeeding your tanks. I feel like that's an important lesson that you should just automatically, off the fact, just automatically say, I'm overfeeding my fish. Because my first experience getting back into the hobby as an adult, right? So this whole thing was started basically by a koi beta named Iro. And Iro was in a 3-gallon tank by himself with a couple snails and maybe some plants and a couple shrimps. And I fed Iro way too much, and he ended up getting dropsy and died. And to the point where when he died, because I had to like kill him because he wasn't going out without a fight, but his like collar was like massive, like about the size of a marble basically. And on a beta, that's like insane amounts of just bloash. And then I think that's one of them. And then also, don't ever assume your tap water is clean. I know that stands without reason, but like when first starting out in this hobby, I thought, oh man, we live on city water. It's well water because here in Eastern Idaho, right, we have a massive aquifer that feeds everything here, right? It's got to be clean. Well, no, because the aquifer just takes in what was here 400 years ago, because that's how fast it moves through the aquifer. And so if there was crap then, it's definitely not going to be any cleaner now, right? And so when it comes down to it, I made a lot of assumptions, at least with my first tank, about how clean the tap water was. And I even did it when I was working at the university. We used to use the tap water there all the time, and we would always get insane nitrate and nitrite numbers. And I'm talking things like one day we do a water change, get it down to 25 nitrates and 0 nitrites, and then the next day we would refill it with water from the sewer system, and it would be like 180 immediately of nitrates and like 6 nitrites. And so like it took some time to us figure out, like, no, we need to get a third filter for this building for these tanks in order for it to be worthwhile. So yeah, I think those two big ones, A smaller one would be don't assume you know everything, because you definitely don't, and I definitely don't.
Stay
And I've been
humble.
told many times. So stay humble. Yeah.
Well, and that's the scientific method in and of itself. Is we just keep learning. We don't know everything. That's why we have to keep testing, keep
That's why we're
learning.
still here. That's why we're
Right?
doing the podcast.
Right? You know, and I think it's cool that our experiences taught us quite a bit.
Yeah.
We know stuff, but we also don't know stuff. So
I say the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Very
Oh, yeah.
much so.
Oh yeah.
well, all right.
Well, I think that's it for today. Again, I'm Chris,
I'm Edison.
I'm Kyle.
and
You're
this has
watching
been Tanks
Tanks
and
and
Thanks.
Thinks. Roll the outro.